just didn't. I probably should have, to be honest. Oh, it says we're live. Let's see. It says it's waiting. Oh, we are live. Okay. So
We're live.
three,
Hello.
2, 1. Welcome to BatYard's Finest, bringing you the finest Batman, Superman, and more in pop culture. I'm your host, and this is your host.
We're back for another short episode. It's Josh and Jerry time again.
Yeah, it's Josh and Jerry. We're doing a bonus episode that's going to be a fairly quick one. We're going to do Adventures of Superman. I think the first season just finished up. It just wrapped up. We're just doing the first 2 episodes. We don't want to overwhelm ourselves. I did, in fact, watch the whole series. I don't know how far, Jerry, how far you are.
I finished the 2 episodes and I was about to start the third, but I had some chores around the house to do, so that ate up my time,
No,
which
I
was
hear you.
it's always fun because it's a really good show. I wasn't expecting to be as engaged as I was with it. Well, I guess we're gonna get
Yeah,
into it shortly.
yeah. Are we just getting into it, or do we have any? Do you have
Um,
anything you want to bring up before? Because honestly, I don't really have much.
in case you notice that I sound a little different, I have new hardware. I'm not gonna say what, but I have new hardware.
I'm
Um,
seeing how this works.
I'm trying to think. I really don't have anything small to kind of reveal just yet. No, nothing just yet. So we can just, unless you have something, we can go ahead and get into it.
I don't really have much. It's just
Well, I guess I technically have one thing
yeah,
I could say, but I would feel better just saying it when we record a regular episode
yeah.
because
I
it's
feel the
kind of important.
same. Yeah, I don't really have much. All right, we're just gonna go into my adventures with Superman episode. We're gonna start with episode 1, and we're doing episode 2. So basically, the premise is Clark Kent is building up a secret identity as Superman. He just landed his job in Metropolis at the Daily Planet. Basically, he's just an intern. It's him and Jimmy Olsen. They're interns, and Lois Lane is also intern at the Daily Planet, and they try to unveil these big secrets that are kind of on the underbelly of Metropolis with this technology, like these robots that are kind of running amok, and Perry
Real
White does not.
sci-fi.
Yeah, real sci-fi stuff. It's like all this technology, which I guess is a spoiler. It's all Kryptonian technology that's been kind of released into Metropolis, and they're like slowly discovering it. And Clark is building his persona as Superman, which Lois Lane does name him that, like
Mm-hmm.
in most renditions of the character. So, Jerry, what did you think of My Adventures with Superman episode 1? Or we could just do the show in general.
I'll just do the show in general because both episodes, like they honestly fit so well together. I feel like
Yeah,
it would be, a little bit of a disservice just to talk about one over the other and split them up.
yeah, no, that's how I felt. Like I felt like if we just did the first episode, it's not enough to kind of like. I mean, it's enough to like understand what the show's about, but I feel like
Mm-hmm.
you almost need to watch the first 2 episodes like back to back to like get a better feel of like how the show's going to progress and everything, and
Oh
like
yeah,
where the relationship between the 3 friends is going to go. Um, yeah. So
definitely it. Especially for me because I haven't consumed too much Superman media outside of what Josh is recommending and a couple of other things I've seen. But I like it a lot. I didn't expect to be like, okay, this is actually something I'd sit down and watch, like actively when I'm like on lunch at work or when I come home or just have a like 30 minutes of downtime. Like it's a great fun show for people who don't want to get into the gritty underbelly of what being a superhero really is. It's giving you the charm and the appeal without necessarily the life or death moments of it. We do see it a little bit when Clark is fighting some of the robots, but he still manages to pull the win at the end of it. And I know for me, I definitely am enjoying the chemistry of seeing intern Clark Kent with intern Lois Lane. So that way they're both on, equal footing as,
Yeah, from
getting
the
their foot
beginning.
in the door of the Daily Planet.
Mhm.
And also, like, oh, before they even got to the point of being at the Daily Planet, they met up at like it looked like a local deli or something, maybe like
Yeah, it was
a
like a
corner
mart.
store.
Yeah.
And they all had their very quick and brief interaction, and then they kind of went on about their days. But as of course it goes with the Superman history, they're gonna obviously both work at the Daily Planet. But I like how in the beginning we see that Clark already has an infatuation for Lois. When he's stumbling over his words, he's like, "Okay, well, I've been embarrassed enough. Goodbye forever."
Yeah, yeah, exactly, like, he's trying to impress her, and it just does not work out because he orders a dozen donuts for everyone at the office, trying to impress, like, Perry White's team, and, the people who own the market, like, give him a baby bib for his donuts, and,
Because he
like,
always gets
basically
wrinkles on himself.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what I really enjoyed about the show? It just felt like it was getting back to its roots of, like, what the character is, but, like,
Hmm.
also being a good new interpretation of the character at the same time. Like,
Oh,
the
definitely.
there's a lot obviously, it's, like, kinda like there's anime motifs, like, when Superman first kinda discovers who like, kinda what Krypton is with, Jor-El, and he gets his Superman suit. Like, it's basically like Sailor Moon when
Yeah,
he
no, that's
gets,
what I
like,
was
dressed
thinking
up.
exactly. You took the words right out of my brain.
Yeah, which honestly, I don't have a problem with because I know they did, like, some similar sequence where, like, it was, like, Kryptonian tech that would just, like, build a suit onto his body, so I thought that was actually kinda cool, like, how that worked, so, like, I didn't have a problem with it, and, it just makes sense, like, it's like it's Kryptonian technology, and, like, and the suit itself before it's just like a blue piece, and then Martha Kent decides, I gotta add something to this. I gotta make this kind of work. So she
I
makes a
gotta make sure
belt.
my son's not exposing himself.
Yeah, so she makes a belt and she makes the underoos. So like the undies are back, the red underwear is back on Superman. It's not just blue. It has that red contrast to like break up the suit, and I think it looks so much better than just like the blue
Hmm.
suit.
It
I
was
think it
kind of
needs
jarring a
that.
little bit when it was just the all blue because your eyes had nowhere to really like, oh, this is just another variation suit of Superman instead of
Right.
his original suit.
Yeah, exactly. It just looks like, I don't know, like a one-piece bodysuit, like, there's nothing to kinda break it up. So, I'm glad they went back to the Underoos, like, they they needed to do that. Yeah, in the first episode, I noticed that, also, like, on when Lois Lane is, like, kinda psyching herself up, she's like, "Today's gonna be extraordinary," and while Clark is basically trying to, like, say, "Today is going to be the most normal day ever," and, like, they're basically, like, contrasting each other, like, how they're preparing their day, but they're basically having the same, like, interior monologues to themselves. And, like,
Hmm.
when she was having that monologue, on her bulletin board, it said Vicky Vale, like, there's an article from Vicky Vale. So, obviously, Vicky Vale is, like, one of her inspirations, like, one of her heroes. So that I thought that was pretty cool. Honestly, the chemistry between Clark and Lois is my favorite stuff in the show, and obviously Jimmy Olsen. Like I love Jimmy in the show too. Like he's always about the conspiracy theories, and like it always ties into aliens or Bigfoot. And like in the first episode, he's like when he talks about like the conspiracy theories, like angle,
He
like
talked
it kind
about
of like
all the classic ones: aliens, mer
yeah,
people,
the
freaking
Mothman.
yeah, the Mothman. I love Jimmy Olsen in this a lot more than I did in the original cartoon back in the 90s. Because when
Yeah.
I think of Jimmy Olsen and as a more modern day incarnation, that's what I'm thinking. He still has the same insanity about him to where everything's a conspiracy. I like how he's more gung ho. He's like, okay, we're gonna go out, we're gonna get the story, and nothing's gonna go wrong.
Yeah, he's kinda more on Lois's, like, mindset with that, like, we have to get the story, and Clark's gonna, like, more standoffish, like, by the book,
Mhm.
situation,
And one
which I
thing
do
that
like.
I definitely wasn't expecting from Jimmy was like he can obviously he knows that Clark and Lois, have feelings for each other. So he's doing his best to just hand them the fully loaded playing deck. And okay, you like Clark? Here's his phone number. All right, we're gonna take a picture next to what like 100 pounds of C4 or whatever was in that sewer
Yeah,
tunnel. And
yeah.
he's like, all right, partner, take pose for a picture. And he's like, this is going to Clark. And you see Lois get, so flustered. And Jimmy's just kind of playing matchmaker, which I didn't expect in this series, but I appreciate it because it helps
Yeah.
add to the quirk and charm that each character has.
No, it definitely does, and, like, Jimmy's, like, the perfect wingman because he doesn't, like, force it on them either, like, it's naturally, like, kinda how they feel, and he doesn't say, "Oh, like, Clark already likes you," or, reveals, like, that to the other person. He just kinda, like, lets it naturally sets up, like, itself for, like, you know so it's, like,
Mhm.
everything kinda lays into place, like, naturally, but he, like, helps push it a little bit, but he doesn't, like, tell move any of the pieces kinda situation. And he's very enthusiastic, and, like, when he's, like, talking about the conspiracy theories, like, I loved how, like, the lighting changed and, like, the ominous music, like, the "woo, woo, woo," music, like,
It
every
was
time he, like,
very X
mentions
Files reminiscent.
yeah, yeah. Every time he mentioned, like, some, theory, like, it was pretty fun, like, banter with that, like, the animation, like, really worked.
I'm so glad you mentioned that because that was one of my favorite things because I was a big X-Files watcher when I was younger. So seeing this, like it just, didn't bring back a huge wave of nostalgia, but I was like, oh, that reminds me a lot of the X-Files with, the real just dark and dramatic music and the low lighting and
Yeah.
how serious he is talking about, okay, obviously we're not dealing with just robots. We're dealing with subterranean mermaids or whatever kind of
Right.
conspiracy he would come up with. And I'm like, you know what? I'm here for the ride, Jimmy Olsen.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah, I like, what is it? Like, he's very enthusiastic and, like, he always, like, is, like, gung ho for the story, like, he's always with Lois, like, he doesn't mind bending the rules at all, for the situation. Um
absolutely.
And even, like, the end credits, like, I kinda like how it focuses on Jimmy. It's just Jimmy, like, walking, like a frame of, like an animation, like, cycle of him, like, walking around. I'm like, it's nice that, like, they put, like, some limelight on Jimmy Olsen, for the end credits because you would think it would be all about, like, Superman or even Lois, but, like, Jimmy is important to the faction, to the trio, you know? Um yeah, so I'm glad, like, he's in there. I have a question for you, like, like, since Jimmy Olsen is, like, more, like, in the past, like, portrayed as, like, a redheaded teen geek, and now, like, he's an African American, so is Perry White, like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, honestly, I think it works. I have no problem with it.
I like it. Especially, on the African American end of it, like, oh, we're seeing, kind of a shift in the design for characters, which is what you want to see whenever, a
Yeah.
series is rebooted or reintroduced. You want some originality to it.
Mhm.
And Perry Olsen reminds me, and I hate to really say it like this, he reminds me of the geek kid who would always get, pushed in the lockers and people would just kind of
Oh,
call him
Jimmy Olsen,
crazy.
yeah.
And Perry White definitely is a tired father. He's like,
Yeah.
I have these wild and unruly teenagers who mean well at heart, but just don't have their heads in the right places at certain times. Like when Lois and Jimmy brought them the picture of Clark Kent and Superman, he's like, stop the presses, run this on the front page. And then he's like, okay, what are you guys still doing here? Get out of my office. And then he tells them like, no, seriously, get out. And then the next frame is they're out of the office and the door slams
Oh
behind
yeah,
them.
they just like yeah, they don't even get pushed out. Like you just know like that action has occurred, you know. I do like that. And like, Lawrence Fishburne played Perry White in Man of Steel and the sequential other Superman movies, I guess, even though there's only one. And like Jimmy Olsen was African American in what was it? Superman. It was Superman, American Alien. That's kind of like when I first noticed that they changed like his skin color, and then and Supergirl. Jimmy Olsen was African American. The problem I had with the Supergirl interpretation was he was just too cool. Like I didn't have a problem with like the color change or anything, like the character design. Like it was just that character was just too cool to be Jimmy Olsen. I'm like, that's not Jimmy Olsen. This is Jimmy
Yeah,
Olsen. Like this current
Jimmy Olsen,
rendition is
he's the
what we're
geek.
getting.
He's the nerd.
Yeah.
He's more relatable because he's like, oh yeah, I definitely, I have my couple of conspiracies that I believe in and stuff. So I'm definitely on board with, the crackpot Jimmy Olsen,
Yeah, I like that
because
too.
definitely if this series, continues with them, being fully, vested into the Daily Planet and they're like tenured in, Jimmy Olsen is definitely going to have the wall with the red threads. Like, okay, these are all the sightings I have of
Yeah.
Sasquatch in Metropolis, and he's going to be trying to explain everything
Yeah,
to
I could
the
see
new
them
interns.
I could see him having, like, the Wall of Weird, like the Smallville, like, Wall of Weird,
Yeah.
so it's like Jimmy Olsen. And, like, I guess the your comment earlier about, you like this Jimmy Olsen more than the '90s one from, Superman animated series. I don't know how I feel about that yet. I wanna say I agree with you, but I don't know, like, I feel like I need, like, another season or 2 to really give you an answer if like I like this one better than the '90s one because the '90s one I'm so used to. The one in the '90s seemed like he was just like trying to be cool and just like ultimately failing at it. Like he was
Hmm.
just like trying too hard to be cool. But that was kind of like the charm of that version of the character. This character is like unforgiving. Like he's completely himself, like he's not putting on a facade like I'm cool, I'm Jimmy Olsen and like failing at it you know, or like in the Supergirl series where it just was a completely different character. Like this is Jimmy Olsen
Like,
for
this is Jimmy
sure.
Olsen unapologetically at his true
Yeah.
essence. And I
Yeah.
guess that's the big appeal for me because I like characters who, no matter what, they're always going to embrace themselves, which is
Exactly.
one reason that I'm more drawn into the show, especially I think within the first, I think like 15-10 minutes of episode 1. I was like, okay, we have Clark and Jimmy, they're sharing an apartment or like a bunk, some kind of living situation together. They have bunk beds. Jimmy's like, our alarm clocks keep exploding, Clark, and I don't know what's going on. Do you know what this is about? And then I can see the gears in his head turning, like, okay, he knows something's up with Clark, but he's not willing to say, anything just yet.
Right. Yeah, like, I like how it starts out with Clark Kent breaking the sink and ripping his shoes in half, like, I'm sure Jimmy Olsen, like, finds the evidence of, like, the sink broken in, like, 2 pieces of 1 shoe, you know? So, like, he's definitely keen on something, and, like, I like how it just starts out like they're already friends, like, Jimmy and Clark, they're already roommates, and it just, like, works, so you're like, "Okay, yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
get it. I understand. They're both interns, they're going for, like, the same kinda gig." They obviously, like, knew each other probably, like, in college or something, and that's, like, how their friendship formed. Like, you could just, like, pick up the pieces already. Like, it doesn't need to be, like, you know, point for point, like, "This is how they met, blah, 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 blah." Like, you
We
already
don't
get
need to go through like
it.
the halfway point of the origin story.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
I love how we're at a good place too, because we're still at a young Clark Kent and Jimmy Olsen and Lois Lane, but we're also them right as they're in the cusp of young adulthood.
Mhm.
So it's, Clark, he's obviously he knows he has his powers and he knows he's not normal. We have Jimmy Olsen, who's already established best friend. Lois Lane is love interest for Clark Kent. We don't have to go through any of the long haul. And I think them starting off as the Daily Planet as interns I think it's a very interesting way to begin the series, in my opinion, because usually it's like, oh, he's already working there, or it's him still like growing up with the powers and still trying to figure out like what he is and everything and whatnot. I like how, for me, skipping a lot of those steps, it's just like, okay, I don't have to see the same thing over and over again. Like, I don't need to see the spaceship coming down. I don't need to see
Right.
Krypton blowing up. I don't need any of the fluff.
Well, I
Just
like how you're discovering that stuff with Clark, like, he doesn't know all that stuff, and he's discovering it, so you're finding out at the same time as the character is, in
mhm.
sense. So, like, I like how you're kinda picking up the pieces with Clark, like, you don't already know, and you have, like, a step above, like, him, like, with knowledge, the kinda situation. I mean, I guess you would just, like, in the zeitgeist of what Superman is, but, like, in the context of the show, you're kinda picking up the pieces as it goes along. Because like, it seems like this Jor-El is a little different than a lot of other renditions, like and I like how he still, like, can't understand him, like, in the 2nd episode, he goes in, he's like, "Okay, I really need to know who I am, where I came from," and then he unveils the ship or, like, part of it or, like, some Kryptonian technology that, like, dispersed underground in Kansas and Smallville, and then, he tried to unveil it while he was a very young kid, and it was just too much for his senses to handle.
Josh, if
It's
you're
just
saying
like,
anything right now, I can't hear you. I think your signal's cutting out.
"Oh, well,
Just keep
anyway."
going with it.
Um, anyway, so he kinda, like, discovers, like, the Kryptonian ship at the same time, and, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. I was just explaining, like, how he, like, is overwhelmed by the Kryptonian ship when he's a kid, and then he has to rediscover it when he's, an adult situation in 2nd episode, and, like, Jor-El is a lot different. Like he doesn't like just speak English to Clark. Like it seems like he's speaking Kryptonian, and eventually he's gonna have to decipher it, like figure out what he says. And I don't want to give too much away, but like you still don't understand what he's saying by the end of the show. If that, so like he still didn't decipher like the Kryptonian language by the
Mhm.
this season, I guess. So it kind of leads up more for the next seasons and stuff, and I'm looking forward to that. Um, and like I said, my favorite stuff is the interaction between, especially like the three of them, but especially Lois and Clark. Just like their you know budding relationship, like how it's just gonna like form. It's like it's very adorable.
It's so
And I
funny
do
that
like
you
that.
mentioned
And that's
Jor-El
probably my
before I
favorite stuff of
could,
the
because
show.
I was
Like, the
gonna
villains
ask
aren't
you
like
how you felt about Jor-El's new design in this.
um, yeah, I thought it was fine. He has a beard, that's a little different. I've seen, like, a couple where he had a beard, like, in comic books. I think it was the one Richard Donner wrote. There's a comic book that Richard Donner wrote, and that version of Jor-El, he had a beard. This sucks. Um, so that one worked. I hate this. We're having difficulties with the audio, so you can hear me, but Jerry can't hear me right now. Oh man, I hate being down here. Well, we can't hear each other, so this might be the episode. We'll see. Um, yeah. So this is something. All right, we're through. I I really need to change my setup to not this basement because this is getting super old, super quick.
Yeah, I was gonna say like I was calling trying to reconnect, but it just didn't go through. So I missed
Yeah.
everything. But I apologize.
No, that's fine. I was just saying, like, the Jor-El, like, with the beard, I only seen that in one comic book with the one that Richard Donner wrote, which, if you don't know, Richard Donner is the director of Superman the movie, and he wrote a Superman comic book, like, in the early 2000s. So, I thought this Jor-El looked cool, like, it was different,
Hmm.
like, he had a I'm not he had the beard, like, I don't know. I thought it looked fine. I didn't have any issue.
I think this was a very just to give my 2 cents in so we can move on from it. But I thought this design for Jor-El was very interesting because he looked almost like he was, Jor-El is always portrayed as a scientist. So seeing him this time kind of almost like he was a prominent leader in the Kryptonian military, because he had the eye patch. He looked, kind of battle hardened, like he'd been in at
Yeah,
least a war or two.
I would agree with that. Yeah, for sure.
And
Like,
definitely it was the fact he's speaking Kryptonian to Clark and he just Clark doesn't understand him, but obviously we know he keeps saying Kal-El, like that's his name. And then when Jor-El's I guess spirit touches Clark, he starts to understand a little bit given like the context clues about what he's seeing.
yeah, I think he's just, like, showing him more visuals at that point. Like, he still doesn't understand the language. He just, like, understands the visuals, like, "Oh, that's me as a baby? Oh, you guys blew up? Oh."
Oh
But
no.
he still doesn't know, like, what Krypton is or, like, anything like that.
Hmm.
Like, Lois is trying to get an interview and figure out where he's from. Like, he still doesn't know. And then, like, it just revealed, like, Clark comes out, like, after the interview between Lois and, Clark, and he's like, "Oh, so how did the interview go?" And she's like, "Oh, Superman's the biggest liar." Like, he's totally full of shit, and then, like, that's how, like, the episode ends. I do feel like how it just kinda, like, cuts right there, and, like, Clark's just so baffled. Um how do you guys how do you think of the villains? Like, what do you think of the villains?
I think it's very interesting seeing humans using because that is Kryptonian weaponry that is
Yeah,
being used, correct?
yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
know
think
that you're not supposed to know that yet, but it is.
I got that feeling, especially after Clark touched I guess it was like the electrical power pack for what was that lady's name, like Willis or something, or Wiles, whatever it was.
I know it's Livewire, like, the is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, like the chick who had
Oh,
all
yeah.
the stole the robots and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, that was Livewire. I don't know, like, her actual, like, name in the show,
Yeah,
because Jimmy Olsen just, like, coins the name Livewire, which Livewire was in, the Superman animated series, so it's kinda
yeah,
cool,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
they incorporated her in a different way.
But it for me, I think it's a unique way to start off because usually we don't see too much Kryptonian weaponry. And whenever we do, it usually involves, Lex Luthor, Brainiac, or, somebody else who has been following Superman for a while or just happened to stumble upon it themselves. But this time we have, Amanda Walker, the leader and the creator of the Suicide Squad. We have the Black Ops guy and another character who I'm not familiar with. So, everybody please excuse my knowledge for not paying too much attention to him. But it
And
was I think
the
it's
guy I think the guy with the batons is dead. Deathstroke. I'm pretty sure he is. Like,
Izzy.
the guy with the
Yeah,
white
that
hair.
makes sense.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna say I like or dislike it just yet. because it's something completely new that I'm just
Mhm.
not used to, but it's definitely drawing me in more. Like, okay, so there's other people in high government positions of power, or just other people in a position of great power who have gotten their hands on obviously some lethal grade Kryptonian military equipment and are studying it and are figuring out, okay, we can use it for this, this, and this. And now they're like, oh, so and then they're questioning Livewire. What do you know about the Flying Man, Superman? And she's just telling him, he's not with you guys. I don't know who he is. And then they just keep shocking the shit out of her, and she's like, I don't know who he is. He just messed up my plans too.
Yeah. Yeah, she, like, stole the technology, so they both think they're in cahoots with Superman. And, yeah, it's revealed with, like, Amanda Waller, and then there's a general, which I can't reveal who the general is, but you'll find out. Um, it's like I like that stuff of it. I think that stuff is more interesting, like, once you get to, like, who's running the show kinda situation, but, like, the individual villains, I wasn't so invested in, like, Livewire wasn't that engaging of a character for me, I was like, "Okay, like, she stole technology, like, she's enough, to, like, drive the
Mm-hmm.
story forward," but, like, her character wasn't, like, anything for me to get attached to. Like, the Superman, the animated series, Livewire, she was spunky, she was a radio DJ, she kinda had a lot going on before she was even Livewire. This one just kinda seemed like, she's like a spec ops
She's
badass lady
she's more
who
kind of
just
like a not so much a freak of the week, but just that small introductory villain to
Yeah.
just kind of help get the ball rolling,
Yeah,
so to
exactly.
speak.
But, like, yeah, like, compared to the animated one, like, that one's the animated series
That'll
first,
always be
that's
my
my
favorite
favorite.
live wire.
Yeah, that's definitely my favorite because she just has, like, a lot of personality. This one, not so much, which I guess isn't, like, a terrible thing. It's not bad, by any means. Like I said, like, the stuff with the 3 of them, like, just their character interactions is definitely my favorite stuff, so, like, I guess that's a good thing to say. Like, honestly, I want the character interactions to be more interesting than you
Hmm.
know, the villains. Like, usually in, like, any medium, for, like, any superhero show, like, or movie, like, I wanna be invested in the characters, and that's definitely what this show is doing, it hits those marks. So
No,
and the
no,
fight scenes
definitely.
are very well choreographed, like, all the animated style, like, how they incorporate that.
You
I
want to
think
know
it's fun.
something that's a little bit interesting about that? So I was looking into the studio who animated this, because I could look and tell, I could look at, all the animation colors, how they did, facial structure and eyes. I said to myself, I know this isn't made here in America, because this is things you see, kind of over in Asian countries,
Mhm.
which it was animated in Korea. I can't remember the name of the Korean studio that helped animate this, but they have this is another big project that they did. But their first big project was the Avatar Legends of Korra that came on
Oh,
Nickelodeon.
that's cool.
I believe during the 2015ish era.
Thanks.
I
Yeah.
can't I haven't watched it yet, so don't ask me.
I haven't even seen the original, so
But
I
you
have a
could
lot to watch.
I was watching, just some of the the scenery changes, how some of the like effects for him using his super speed and everything are, and I was like, this looks, I've seen something of this caliber somewhere before, but I couldn't put my finger on it. And then when I saw the studio who did it and saw that, oh, they've also done other works using, they've done other projects that involve, high fight scenes and high special effects to display powers, everything, just made much more sense. Especially because, you could really see the blush on
Yeah, I
Lois
did like
Lane's
that.
face, even though they gave her a darker skin tone.
Yeah.
So I was
Whenever
like, this is definitely something that an overseas animated company would do.
Yeah, whenever they have, like, an awkward interaction, like, between her and Clark, or, like, they're kind of, like, smoozing on each other, like, their cheeks would get super hyper red, which I did like, it definitely added to the charm of the whole chemistry and everything. and like it was kind of like accidental situations, like they bumped into each other, and then like, ooh,
Ah,
situation,
who are you?
or like Lois is like, "Yeah, lift me up so you could, so I could see into the warehouse where all the robots are," and does, and he falls, and he catches her, and they like kind of look at each other, and then Jimmy interrupts. Like Jimmy always interrupts at the right moment, you know, which is pretty fun. He's setting up and he's like blocking it at the same time without
He's
even
giving
realizing
them,
it.
he's breadcrumbing them enough to
Yeah.
push their relationship, but he's also making sure the plot of the story still moves on.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, we applaud you, Jimmy, for that. And like, speaking of like how, there's like some character design changes. Like Lois Lane is definitely more Asian descent than like she has been in the past. And I thought that was a interesting idea too. Like I honestly I think that works. I think that's a cool idea. Um I would like to see more of that in live action too. And like,
Mhm.
as long as Lois Lane has black hair, I think she could be kind of any race, like, but like, I mean, like, there's times she had red hair. I'm like not so into that. I'm like, oh, that's Lana Lang. That's not Lois. But
Yeah.
that's just kind of how I feel about the character. Um, so
I
yeah, I thought
know
that was cool. I thought she
I know
has a good design and like her
Oh,
short
yeah.
hair.
Definitely her with that, like, pixie cut, I think works, especially since she's you can tell she's got a lot of, hyperactivity as a go-getter, like, okay, when, Perry White's telling her, "Okay, take the interns around the building and don't go anywhere else," and she's like, "You got it, boss," and she's like, "Okay, we're gonna go pursue this news story, and we're not gonna listen to anything the boss just said." And then even after that, she's just like, "Oh, guess what? We're gonna keep on keeping on, ignoring everything in pursuit of, this obviously important story, but also because she's trying to prove herself to the boss, which I definitely like in this because it's more so, all right, she's not an employee trying to prove herself. She's an intern who's like, look, if you give me a shot, I can be just as good as anybody else, and I can be your ace reporter. And definitely her big energy is matched with, Jimmy and Clark, especially when they are talking to the young kids
Oh yeah,
in
the
the
news
deli.
kids.
Yeah, the news kids, and
The
they're
this
just like, okay, what do we got going on here?
Yeah, I did like that. I know, like, obviously, the young girl was, like, a mini Lois Lane, and then there's, like, a kid on the side who kinda looks like a Clark Kent kinda stand-in. So, like,
Hmm.
I like how they kinda had, like, the sequential, like, versions. I was thinking, I wish, like, the main girl was Roberta from,
Yeah,
the Superman Smashes the Klan.
man, that's a good throwback. That would have been
That
great
would've
to
been
see.
Yeah, that would've been a great tie-in. I remember reading that comic book, and we're like, this animation or this, like, style would really work in animation for Superman, and I feel like this is kind of the answer to that
Yeah,
that we're saying. So I'm glad this exists, in this style too. I don't know if you feel that way.
no, now that you said it, I can see it all in my mind's eye. They do, like another Smash the Clan, kind of like mini special. Maybe they do it, like 2 or 3 episodes, but they bring in
I would love that, yeah.
that would be especially for this art style that they use
Yeah,
to
for sure.
animate it. It would be a perfect, I would say almost, a perfect frame for frame mirror for the Smashes the Clan comic.
Yeah, I think if they did, yeah, I would like to see this team, like, not in the show necessarily, but, like, on its own kind of spin-off, like, miniseries or, like, something like along or like a mini movie, like
Hmm.
a one-off Superman smashes the Klan, but, like, set in the 1940s, like everything. I think this studio could definitely pull it off, and I think that'd be fun.
Oh, definitely. It would. You know what? Maybe we should, go ahead and put that buzz in their ear, like, hey, the team you got animating My Adventures with Superman, I think they should do like a mini movie about the Smashes the Clan comic, because not only would that be really beneficial to people of Asian descent, but it would also be a really nice thing to just see animated, because of
Yeah,
all the characters in the comic.
that would be really
Everybody in
cool.
there would be fantastic to
It
see.
would be hard though, like, at the same time, since they have the radio show, like, Bud Collier's, like, voice is so, like, ingrained in my head with that story, so, like, when I read the comic, I just, like, hear, like, that version of Superman. So, like, I would love if they could get, like, an actor who could hit those same kinda calibers, like, with those notes, like, "This looks like a
Yeah,
job for Superman," like, where it kinda goes, like, in that lower
goes
tempo.
for Superman.
Yeah. Yeah. I would love that. It's yeah, that's such a I don't know, that's kinda a hard caliber to hit with the Bud Collier's, voice style, especially nowadays. Um,
Yeah.
and it's so iconic too. But, like, I'm sure you could find someone. Yeah, you can find something.
Somebody would be willing to take the chance.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Um, but yeah, all in all, I really enjoyed this show. It seemed like the Kryptonians, like, before they sent, Clark to Earth, like, they visited Earth before, um, so it would make sense, like, they actually, like, scoped it out before, like, they're just like, "Oh, we're just gonna send our baby to a random planet," like, it's somewhere they've been before, which, like, I thought that made sense. That kind of, like, is answered, like, through other episodes, so I don't wanna, like, reveal too much, with that, but, I thought that made sense.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. I know I'm gonna continue watching the series. I enjoyed the first two episodes a lot. So, and I think they have what, like 9 or 10 episodes out
There's
in
10
total.
in total, and, like, it's such a breeze to get through, like, one episode, I think, is, like, 20 minutes,
Hmm.
and it's, like, interesting that this is Adult Swim because this is, like, very, like, family oriented, like, anyone can
Yeah,
watch
this
this.
is something I would expect to see, on like prime time Saturday morning, or
Yeah, like
maybe like
Cartoon
an
Network or
like prime
yeah.
time after school on Cartoon Network.
Yeah, that's what I would expect, but, like, I don't know why it's on Adult Swim, but I feel like it's getting traction, I think people are enjoying it. I'm enjoying it, for sure, and, the title, My Adventures with Superman, it kinda seems like the main character would be, like, Lois Lane or Jimmy Olsen, but it's definitely, like, still Superman oriented, like, he's the main character. So, like, the title might throw some people off. They're just expecting, like, you know, like, Lois Lane to be the head honcho, like Jimmy Olsen.
Hmm.
Um, I I could understand that, but at the same time, it's Superman, like, that's the character you want to follow the most, Like, that's kinda
It's
like the
it's still his
point.
story, even though he has everybody else in it.
Yeah.
But I definitely am enjoying seeing, okay, even though Superman's having his moments, like we said, Lois Lane and Jimmy, they still have their fantastic moments. And also when the trio is together, everybody's just kind of bouncing off the same energy the other gives off.
Yeah. So, Jimmy Jazz, did you see the show? Did you watch the show? Seems like you did.
I believe he did.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I do like it. Well, you said, a weird gem. Um, yeah, I do like it. I really enjoy it. I remember when they announced this and they announced that they're doing a new Batman the animated series, like, more like a '40s version of Batman. I don't know what's going on with that because it was supposed to be on HBO. Now I think it's gonna be on Amazon. It's gonna be distributed somewhere else. But I remember, like, hearing about both shows, and I was more interested in, like, the Batman show, but, like, now after watching this, like, I'm more interested in seeing season 2 of this. Like, I definitely want more to come. But I don't know what's going on with that Batman show now
It's
that I
gonna get ready to
think
get
about it.
plugged. They're just gonna go ahead shelf it like they did the Batgirl movie.
I mean, it looks so good though. It's like Bruce Timm and everything, and like it had that 40s vibe, and it looked like just like the Batman the animated series, but like even like older. You know, it looked like the first
Hmm.
comic book version. I don't even remember what it was called. Now I gotta look that up.
I don't remember either because I remember seeing it around that same time too.
Yeah. You keep talking. I'm gonna look that
I'm just
up.
gonna read off Jimmy Jazz's comment. He said the
Okay.
animation is okay, the design of Soup is great, but the story is probably one of the more engaging Superman we have gotten. I agree. I love the design for Soup and the story because everything is just flows and meshes so well together. Personally, I like the animation. I think for what they want to give to us as a product, it works for itself. There's a few, not many, but I'm only 2 episodes in, obviously. But there's a few moments where I'm like, okay, I didn't really care for like this particular animation. Like when the robots were first introduced, to me it looked too cheesy of a animation look for it.
Oh, like the design of the robots?
Yeah, but that's just like a small personal gripe. Everything else, looked fine. I didn't have any
Yeah.
particular issues with.
I like the animation style. I do really enjoy it. I do like the design of, Superman for sure. I think the main 3 have the strongest design for sure, and Perry White.
Hmm.
Um, like, I thought Livewire's design was, ah, okay. Like, the villains' designs, I'm not, like, so really into. Um, yeah, we'll get into that once it kinda moves forward. Then we could talk about other villain designs because I don't wanna reveal too much. Um, there's a couple episodes I would like to talk to you about, but we'll get there at some point. So I just looked it up. Amazon officially confirms Batman: The Caped Crusaders. So they do have, it's called Batman: The Caped Crusaders, so they do have the rights to distribute it. I guess it's not,
Okay.
expected to be released by the end of 2023. There still hasn't been a hard set release date or release reschedule. Well, the end of 2023 is coming up pretty soon, and
That's
for
very
that not
soon.
to be announced yet is kinda ridiculous, so
They
we'll
only
see.
have a they only have a short amount of time to do something with it.
We got Purple Tony Stark. That's true. Yeah, I don't wanna reveal too much, who that character is, but, if that's yeah, it's okay. It's okay rendition of, like, that character. It's not my favorite. I don't wanna reveal too much. So Jerry, do you have final thoughts or words you wanna say about My
I
Adventures with Superman?
My Adventures of Superman, that for me, it's definitely a step in the right direction because it's, definitely it's something we've talked about off screen, and I've brought it up to you as an idea for a future bonus episode when we can get all the Backyard gentlemen together. But it's a very fresh breeze from the, superhero fatigue that I've been
Yeah,
feeling. And I also am enjoying the fact that the they're switching up and giving us fresh takes on characters and not giving us the same story just rehashed in a more modernized storytelling. I'm looking forward. I'm definitely going to continue watching this. So expect me to text you a whole bunch today, like, all right, I'm on episode 6. What kind of what's going on with X, Y, and Z character?
yeah,
But
there's definitely a couple I would like to talk about. But yeah, go ahead.
but
Sorry.
definitely this is like it as far as a new cartoon for 2023, this is probably my most enjoyed that I've watched so far because it definitely makes you want to watch more as you finish each episode.
Yeah, for sure. You wanna keep it going, and it's easy
And
to
I
get
have
through.
and I haven't really felt like that in a while with a cartoon since I want to say probably regular show back when it was still airing in the mid 2000s, the mid 2010s. That was probably one of the few shows that really just kept me, all right, I need more, I need more, I need more.
Yeah, I 100% agree. So Jimmy Jazz says there's so many freeze moments of the characters in an animation standpoint. I give it a 4 out of 10. I honestly didn't even notice that any like freeze
Mm.
frames or anything like that.
I,
I think I
as
was
I
just
watch,
too
I'm gonna
engaged.
have to keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, now I mean like since now that I rewatched episodes 1 and 2, I feel like I'm just gonna rewatch the show now. Like so now I'll look through it. I'll see if I catch any of that, but I haven't seen that. Um, yeah, I think I basically said everything I need to say. It's a fresh take on the character, and like Jerry was saying, like superhero fatigue is kind of a real thing that's going on in 2023. But this is like such a fresh take and a necessary take that we needed from Superman because Superman's just been so hard and like edgy, like unnecessarily so recent years with like the Henry Cavill portrayal where he's not very smiley or
He's
hopeful.
not the all-American boy next door we're used to.
Yeah, which is kinda what we need from that character. That like, they basically try to make him Batman. Well, like, Superman is not that. He's very hopeful and very charming, charismatic, and that's why he shows his face, because he emotes. Um,
Mhm.
and I'm glad they utilize that, and, like and the thing I wanted to say is, like, the Clark Kent awkwardness doesn't seem like a facade. It seems like that's actually him in this show, and, like, he's still, like, stumbling to figure out what Superman is. So, like, it's not like, when he puts on the glasses, like, he pretends he's, like, bumbling and doesn't know what he's doing, like, that's actually him. Like, that's actually,
Mhm.
like,
Like, that's
how
just
he
a genuine
deals his
part of who
fail
he is.
yeah, that's how he deals with his day to day, and I like that, and it would make sense, especially early on where he's, like, still figuring out his powers and how this works, like, he's bumbling around, like, he doesn't really know, like, how this works. Um, let's see what Jimmy says, like, the characters just are frozen in time, not doing oh, okay, okay. I've seen that in, like, other Justice League animated movies, like the New 52 ones, I noticed it in that, or just minimal movement required, move less, least amount of animations as possible, and yes, hyper focus on animation. They make him very relatable in the most adorable way with Superman.
Yeah,
Yes, I agree.
yeah, now that he's, now that Jimmy's described how they've done it, I can definitely on some of the, like, the dead time on screen, I can definitely see what he's mentioning now.
Yeah, I think I'm just so engaged with, like, the design that, like, I kinda went past that, like, I
Yeah.
forgave it for that. I can understand that. Yeah, I'd probably give the whole show, the whole season, like, an 8 out of 10. Um, that's probably where I would stand by it. Like, I don't wanna really individually rate these episodes because, like, it doesn't really feel that kind like that kind of show, Like, I feel like this is just, like, one overarching story that, like, on a whole, I'd
Mhm.
give it an 8 out of 10. I don't know how you rate it
It
so far.
For me right now, I'm giving it, just a placeholder of a 6, just until I finish it and I have
Right.
my own opinions I form. But
That's
it's
fair.
like I can definitely see it, shooting up to 7, 8, maybe 8.5, just
Hmm.
that depend on how I feel. But it's, like we've all said, it's a very uh very, very good just new story for Superman. And I hope that, they stick with this same writing team in studio because I'd like to see them do more. Maybe with them doing a not Batman. I wouldn't like to see them do a Batman. Maybe do something with Flash, give Flash, a show.
Flash would be cool in this kind of style animation. I could see that with, like, speed, force, and slowing down time. They kinda do that with Superman at times, like, when he stops the car as a kid in the 2nd episode, I think, in the flashback, or maybe is that the
I
first
think it's in
episode?
the first episode.
Yeah, I think it's the first scene in the first episode, and he, like, figures out his powers like for the first time, and like he grabs that kite out of the tree and starts flying. Yeah, it was fun. That was fun stuff. Um, let's see. Jimmy Jazz says also, since Jerry knows this, 10 out of 10 for writing team having a personal vendetta against Steve's.
Oh, that's I know what he means by that. We're just gonna skate past that with Josh.
That's okay. I don't have a problem with anyone named Steve. You could stay and watch the show. Please do.
Oh man.
Comment Goblin gives the show an overall 8.3. I don't really enjoy Superman much. Sorry, Josh, but this is a great pace, well-rounded characters that you actually want to see. No, that's fine. I
You know,
understand, like, Superman I wouldn't like, Superman's not, like, in the everyone's favorite flavor of ice cream, but, like, it's a classic, you can't go wrong with
you
it.
can't go wrong with the classics. And
Yeah.
Superman, Batman, they're two of the biggest classics that have been around, I think, in every decade since they've been first on television.
Yeah. Yeah, no, 100%, like, since they came out, they were, like, the biggest it's like them and Spider-Man are, like, the top 3, I would say.
Yeah.
And,
And
like, now, I don't know, Iron Man's up there now since
yeah,
the
Iron
movies.
Man's up there since the movies. And from I've said how I feel about Spider-Man. I'm not into the whole Spider-Man fandom. To me, he's okay, but that's just me.
So to pull a non-Superman fan really speaks how well they handled this. Yeah, I would agree with that
Oh yeah,
'cause
definitely.
yeah. You know what I like? Oh, well, one of my favorite aspects to Superman, like, you could get any flavor you want of the same character, like, like, if I wanted a 1950s version, I could go back and get that, or if I wanted, a radio show version, I could go back to the '40s and listen to that, or if I wanted one from the '70s, like or the '90s, like, it kinda, like, hits, like, the different motifs, and that's one of the reasons I really enjoy the character because, like, you could go back to, like, those kind of versions. Like, it'd be fun to say, like, I wish there was a '50s version of, Iron Man to watch, but there isn't, like, that doesn't exist, like, so, that's why I find, like, the character so fun because there's so many different renditions, like, different kinds of flavors you can get from the Americana hero.
Oh,
So,
definitely. And
just
Superman definitely, like, even with, each new iteration, he still fits, with being the hero that the people need at any given time.
yeah, for sure. I 100% agree. So I guess we'll end this episode. So 3, 2, 1. This is Josh sending you off, up, up, and away until next BatYard's finest episode.
And this is Jerry guiding you all with Green Lantern's light. And unfortunately, Matt does not have a voiceover cameo this time, so it's just going to be the two of us.
Yeah, yeah. Make sure to bug Matt. Go comment on Matt, whatever, and tell him we need him. All right. Good night.
Good night, everybody.